Welcome to Critical Café,
Join us as we chat about the latest episode,
the campaign as a whole, and Critical Role in general.
all while we partake in a delicious cup of coffee. So grab yourself a tasty beverage
Settle into your favorite cozy spot.
and get ready for a little geek philosophy. Welcome to Critical Cafe, and we're live, so we have to make adjustments on the fly. So,
Yes.
first time being live. My name's Brian. We've got Crystal here as well, and thanks for joining us. Those of you who have been on before, or at least seen the show before, know what we do. We talk about the latest and greatest of Critical Role Campaign 3. It's been a few of their episodes, so we're going to tackle 3 today. We're going to go through sort of a highlight of them, and then we'll discuss as we move through. But thanks for joining us. If you are joining us in the chat, we will have some time to head over to the chat messages as we wrap up a couple things. We'll kind of check in with you as we go, because I'm kind of doing all the production on my side myself, so want to make sure it's easy enough to follow, and we can move through as needed. So anyway, so that's kind of everything that I needed to say. So you don't want to hear from me anymore. Crystal, how you doing?
Good. Doing great. Just get settled in with my, my beverage of choice and my cup.
Yeah, that's right. Shameless.
We got new mugs,
Place.
so Critical Role.
Yeah,
And
we'll
Geek
put a
Philosophy.
link so you guys, if you want to pick one up. All right, so let's jump right in. So let's here we go. We had someone in the chat 2 days early. So
Hi, Wolverine.
Wolverine was in the chat 2 days early. So hey, that's okay. It's all
That's
right to be in
great.
the chat. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's jump in. I am gonna jump over to Critical Recap. So it's been a while, as they would say, since we have done any of these shows. So I just want to make sure that you guys know, if you are ever behind and you don't get a chance to watch us, you can head over to critroll.com and go to the Critical Recap. Danny Carr does an amazing job of doing a quick recap of what happened in the episode, and it also has a link directly to the episode. So we're going to use this as a way of getting caught up. And we have watched all these though, but we're gonna kind of use these as our notes to make sure that we can stay on track. So I'm gonna scroll down to where we
Wolverine
left. I think
rejoined
it was. I'm sorry.
Wolverine rejoined us.
Oh,
They're
awesome.
on it.
I'll listen to the background while I work on my tabletop role-playing game. Awesome, very cool.
Awesome.
Glad to have you with us. All right, so let's jump into Ominous Lectures, I think is where we left off, which is Campaign 3, Episode 45.
Yes.
So, bear with me. Maybe. Try again. I'm going to try again. Technical difficulty.
That's okay.
We'll get it, guys. There we go. Okay. So, this was, we had just come off of the fiasco with everything that happened in the basement. They had just got back from the plane of fire, the whole basement scenario.
Impromptu adult film.
Exactly. Yeah. And Ashton was not there during that game. So we kind of start out here at the beginning of this episode, hearing what he was doing while he was gone, and he kind of responds to the message that Imogen sends, and then turns out that the person that was there that he noticed, Violet, was not there looking for the group, but he accidentally told her a lot of the stuff about Belle's house, and so in exchange for keeping her quiet, he went on a mission with her, and so they had a whole separate adventure in Hell's Kitchen, I guess. It was a big,
sounded like.
kitchen adventure. Apparently, whatever the analog for Italian cooking is in Matt's world, this is what he was into. So a lot of pasta sauce and oregano and all kinds of stuff. So
I think the guy's name was even similar to oregano,
Yeah, no, it's true. Or Grayo. Yeah. Oh man.
Or Grayo.
I didn't even think of
Orgio.
that. Like, I wonder, maybe
Orgio.
that's what made Taliesin think about doing the Italian stuff. So then we had, and again, I'm going to go through all this, and then we'll stop and we'll talk. Then they had the encounter with Professor Isham, which this, if you guys remember, FCG is trying to find out more about himself too, and what's going on there. So they wanted to find out what they could about the version of his story with the discoveries about himself and all that kind of things, and the fact that he was an Aormaton, and goes into a little bit more detail there. And then from there, they move and talk to Professor Samal. They go into the office. They get a little bit of more information about what's going on there with the historical figures and things like that. What's thrown on here as close encounters, which is a really interesting way to put it, is finding out a little bit more about the being that Imogen was able to conjure as they were going through that. So we'll need to talk about that a little bit. That was really interesting. Then the Martinet himself shows. Elven Man shows himself as they're going to find out more, and it's just Imogen and Fern. And yeah, they're kind of stuck with everything that goes on there. Love to talk that through. Then they have Ludinus asking if they know what he's doing and all that kind of stuff. And Imogen lets him know that they know a little bit, but he lets out a little bit more. He kind of gives a little bit more information. And then I think we round out this episode with them going to the Fey Realm, really. They kind of get to the point where they head over to the Fey Realm and start moving towards Fern's grandmother's house. So that's kind of the whole episode. I'm going to head back over here so we can kind of talk it through. So, okay, a lot happened. What are your thoughts? What is your reaction to everything that went on?
So I feel like this episode was packed full of information. I mean, we got a little bit more of FCG's background, finding out that he was built as a harmonious Aormaton. So he wasn't essentially at his core an assassin, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't then like refit to, somehow work out the angle of the assassinations and stuff, I guess, in the homes. And then he also, I think part of that was kind of interesting too, is the core that he's got is larger than what was it Isham, the professor, had seen before.
Right.
And he was saying that, they had to be really careful not to overload it because he could become a bomb. Yeah. And so, the whole stuff happened with Ashton, but that was kind of like, those like quick and over with and confusing, really. So the most interesting part to me was when we did get to FCG and because I think in the story, the two are happening simultaneously, but I think we talk a little bit more with FCG first, and then we go to Fern and Imogen. So I was really fascinated with all the stuff with FCG.
Yeah, me too. And I think that it may be a little bit of foreshadowing with the whole, like, he could turn into a bomb. Like, not foreshadowing as if they already know what's going on, but I feel as if Sam and this character may tuck that away in the back of their brain to think, if I need to overload and save the crew by blowing up, that might be something that he kind of has in his back pocket if he needs to use it, which is, sad. Although I think, isn't it here where he goes and asks for the oven, where he asks if he can have the oven installed, which I thought was really cool. So now they have a rolling,
an easy bake oven,
rolling easy bake oven, which is great because they, they had the recipe from Lord Estros of this with his cookies and all this other stuff. So I think Sam actually made some. I don't think they get to it until later, but they actually made some cookies and brought it in. So I thought that was really cool.
Well, and the professor, he was just fascinated by FCG. And so I think he made FCG feel really good. He talked to him about, he's his own person. He can set his own path. It was, I feel as if FCG themselves are kind of looking for, I feel like they don't feel like they're real. And
Yeah.
instead of latching on to the positives of multiple people or multiple, professionals saying, "Oh no, you are," it's like they keep looking for someone to say they aren't, almost. Like it's like
Yeah.
he can't believe it himself. And he doesn't really know what his purpose is. And then he's got this shiny coin from the change, is it the change bringer?
Change bringer.
And
Yep.
yeah, and I think we see him get a little bit more after this visit. He gets a little bit more serious, I think, about the Changebringer and
Yeah.
his destiny. So I think you might be right, talking about the whole kind of foreshadowing the fact that I could totally see FCG sacrificing themselves for the group. I really can. I hope that doesn't happen because I love them, but it just seems like that character is all about every single time they get into a scrape. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I can be left behind. Okay, well, because I'm not real.
Well, I
So,
think, yeah, I think, it's that element of, I'm a real boy, right? Like the
yeah,
whole, I've got to figure out what makes him him. I think they also, you know, this is something that happens a little bit later. I'm gonna mention it now, but they talk about it a little bit later where, um, someone mentions they have that portable hole, and the real limitations to the portable hole is you can't breathe after a certain. You only have so much oxygen, and he's like, I don't breathe. So they're
yeah,
like, oh, we never thought of that. We can put you in there. And to me, it's a cool mechanic, and it's a cool way to like, use that feature and play through, and maybe they have a strategic advantage. But in a lot of ways, then it also says we're going to use you because you're this thing that
right.
doesn't have to breathe, right? So like, there's this, I don't know, there's a balance to that. That hey, it's fun, it's D&D, it's just it's a cool thing to be able to pull off, and if they do it sparingly, it'll be kind of nice. But I don't think if it reinforces the other part of it, it may send him down the wrong path,
Right.
right? Like where he doesn't
Right.
see other people valuing him as much either. Because he's gotten that a lot. Like everybody that sees him, they're like, oh, you can talk, and oh, you can do
Yeah.
this, and it's really interesting to see that
Yeah.
dynamic play out.
Right. Yeah. I hope that we see some self-esteem growth. I hope that everything, even though they feel a certain way about themselves, the group keeps continuing trying to talk to them about being real
Yep.
and having a soul. And so I do hope that we see development in that area versus like going backwards. I
Yeah.
really, he's not just a robot. He does have
And
his own personality. He's got his own, you know, he's not being, manipulated by someone. So I really want to see it like come full circle kind of.
I also
So,
think like it's a great point because he's the one that tries to make everyone else feel better, and he puts on this smiley day, right? Like he puts on this face, which is probably really him. That's probably what he or her or him, they. I'm not sure what is it they was his
I think
pronoun.
it's
I don't want to make
they.
sure I'm okay. So they put on this front, but the front I think is them at their core. So um, how they feel about things tends to come across in their actions, right? Like I
Right.
think that's true for everybody. Like what you actually are comes across with how you are and how you treat people and what you do, not just what you say. And I think he is as close to being happy and upbeat, or they are as happy and upbeat
Yeah.
as you could expect, right? So it's really kind of a cool character build to try to like ride that line of being a
Yeah.
motivational speaker almost, and someone that's doubting themselves.
Well, and the
Anyway,
complete opposite of not the brave,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
very
like
true.
brash
Yeah,
and in your face and it's like all the
yeah.
time. So,
Well, also, interesting enough, like Not was almost told they are not this, not that, not the other thing to begin with, and then ended up becoming not the after the transformation into the goblin, which was really interesting. So I don't know. It's a really good comparison for those two characters.
But kind of like.
So then, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, just at the same time, you've got Fern and Imogen in the other professor's office, and they had at first the professor didn't even want to let them in, but once they mentioned Rudisborn, she let them in, and then it was like they could tell that she had kind of hold up, and sorry, you're going to be seeing a lot more of the cat since you can't be edited out.
Yeah, there's no editing.
Romeo.
Here, so when cats attack.
Yes.
So.
He did something behind me. But what I found interesting was they noted, as they were entering, they could tell that she stayed there for days. She was hiding out. She was trying to duck. She knew that people were coming for her, and she was trying to hide. So, but there was so much good information from that whole encounter too. We learned a lot more about Fern's mom. We learned a whole lot more about what the Grim Verity was doing, the experiments that they were doing on the Rudisborn, and how Imogen's mom, Liliana, was their first subject. And Odahan was their last. Or she was the one, she left because she didn't like how they were handling things. So,
yeah, I think that's right. It was how they were going about the whole thing wasn't up to her standards.
Because they wanted to be cautious. Right. They wanted to be cautious, especially after, especially after they started seeing the Rashan and having contact with the other kind, so.
Which was really interesting to kind of learn more about them a little bit to kind of figure out what was going on there. So.
Well, I think even when we did our recap of that episode where Imogen was in that, they were in that battle, and this being or this red hazy, character showed up. We were like, oh, what's that? And she didn't know what it was. She just knew it came because of her, or it happened because of her. And then it hurt everyone, including her. So now we have a name for it.
A question popped in. Did they kick her out?
I'm not sure if they kicked her out or if she left. I know that she wasn't happy. I know we're talking about Odahan, right? I know that she she wanted to keep pushing. She wanted to know more, and she didn't want to be cautious. So I'm not sure if they. I'll have to go back and look at that. I just know that they didn't leave on good terms.
Yeah, and also part of me is and not that they, the way I heard it is they didn't, let me bring it up to make sure we can, so the way I heard it, they didn't want to continue with the experiment because she became too intense. I think that's probably correct. I think that, right on, William, I think that the fact that it was becoming too intense, they didn't want to continue. What I can't figure out, or what I can't remember, is did she leave or did they tell her to go? It's hard for me to even imagine someone telling her to do something because of all the stuff that she does. So it's or maybe that she just felt like it wasn't worth it anymore, with what they were doing and how that was, and she was like, I'm just going to do my own thing. And from what I don't know, but I'll have to go back and look.
From what the professor was saying too, is that the Rashan were reaching out to kind of create bonds with the Rudisborn to communicate. That some of them were nice, benevolent, kind, and others were really pushy, insistent, violent, and they couldn't. It was always this confusion on how to handle them because the Rudisborn could communicate with them, but they never really knew what they were going to get, and so they would get intense, and that is what I think scared the Grim Verities, because they didn't know, they never got a common personality. It was always one or the other. And I think they thought that it was becoming too aggressive because they themselves couldn't communicate.
So they stopped and then she left. All right. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. They closed it down.
That. Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, William.
Yeah, that's great. So it makes sense, right? Especially considering what Imogen's mom was trying to keep her away from things in a way, and it makes you wonder maybe this is why all that stuff was going on. yeah, and then they started going after the Grim Verity, right? So yeah, it's yeah, whew, a lot
I
going on.
know.
So
I
all right,
know.
so then in the discussion with Fern and Imogen, they also start learning a little bit more about like um, not only what was happening in the experiments, but they had these. She had papers, she had documents, and
Yeah.
these were like the experiment documents and everything that was going on, and things directly tied to Imogen's mom, right? Like that too,
Right.
and
She had taken pages out of the books
that's
that
right.
were
Yeah,
in the different texts
that's right.
explaining their experiments, and then the ones that listed, I think, the Ruidus born, because she had a full list of Ruidus born. And that's, she was trying to hide all of that stuff. She had taken it out of any books, any text that they had, so that she could keep the information away from, I think, Odahan and her band, and had
Well,
secreted them away in a little thing under her desk. But unfortunately,
unfortunately,
dun dun
they were
dun.
interrupted, and things changed pretty quick
Right.
as far as that conversation went, and we kind of find out really quickly why she's been so cautious about leaving. Um, so yeah, what did you think about that whole situation?
First of all, Ludinus is very scary, and I
Yeah,
think definitely at the level where everyone is at right now, metagaming a little bit, the level of their characters.
yeah, right, right, yeah.
I mean, they couldn't take on Odahan. So even though Ludinus, they do find out he's not Ruidus born, and I think he's jealous because of that, but he's not. I think that he's ancient almost. He was around for the calamity. He was around, like he's seen all this stuff, and they find out a little bit more about his reasons behind things, and he gets the papers from the professor, and she doesn't want to give them up, so he just waves his hand and scrambles her brain.
Yeah,
I mean, just very calmly, like it's just a Tuesday. Like,
yeah,
and
that was
then
crazy.
just carries on a very calm conversation with Imogen and Fern afterwards.
Yeah,
Like
well,
psycho.
and so they do a pretty good job of like keeping things calm and not letting things blow up too much. Um, so I think especially given the fact that we're going to go through all three of these episodes, we could
Yeah.
probably say, okay, so that scenario, they meet back up with the rest of the group. Then it's basically time to move on to the Fae, right? So the Fae realm
Yeah.
at that point,
Yeah.
right? So, um, which was interesting because they do the whole shift to get there and start moving through the realm. Everything is weirdness as it is when you go to the Fae realm,
And Fern looks
and
different.
Fern looks different. What's really interesting to me is like I loved seeing Ashley light up.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
watching her when they were in, her story, her backstory elements was like really fun because she was like grinning ear to ear and like because she knew and she worked with Matt to craft her backstory and stuff. So it was really interesting seeing
Well,
her
and her
progress.
mom made the manor. Her mom crafted what Nana's house looked like for her. And then she had it, I think it was not last stream, but the stream before, so that everybody could see it, that her mom had made this whole like
Like
weird,
this
creaky.
she did crafting, yeah. And when we mean,
Yeah.
just to clarify, we're saying Ashley's mom made
Yes. Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
Ashley's mom in the real world made a model of that manor, which I thought was just it was really great.
It's
Like
awesome.
it's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So they
they
had
go through
screaming flowers. Remember, like
screaming
singing to the
flowers.
flowers and screaming flowers, and a tree was not letting them go, and so they had to sing to it and Fern got out her flute and they montaged, the
At least they didn't eat the
nature.
mushrooms this time, so
Oh
that was
gosh.
good. They didn't eat anything that I can
Yeah.
remember, so that was really good. So this really takes them all the way up to the point where they're. So let's jump back over and take a look at because I think this is where that episode ends. So let's take it back over to the next one. So back over to Critical Recap. So that was the ominous lectures, and then now we're heading into
Ligament Manor.
Ligament Manor. What a name! Oh man, even the name of this thing is just I don't know. Oh, let me refresh this and try again. Sorry, everybody. Let me one more time. There we go.
There we go.
All right, so Nana time.
Yes. Morgan.
So, it was a latch 20 I got from William in the chat. So
nice.
Yeah. It was actually. Okay, so Belzhal enter Ligament Manor, the home of Morgan, which is Fern's crazy creature, by the way, like two-headed, like really eerie. Nana calls herself an observer, not a master of fate, but someone who can add a thread to a tangle if she chooses. She's intrigued to know if they've seen the Malleus keys. Like, she doesn't really know a ton about the stuff yet, but she's interested in them. She knows just a little bit about the Rudis beyond the superstitions, but so they get a little bit of information there. She also has collections of people that have been turned into things. Really interesting. And she says that they should ask Ira himself to get more information. So the two of them were a little entangled, so to speak, at some point.
Flirty.
Yep. So she goes into they allow them to go into the collection room, which is sort of this crazy,
like oddities.
Blaster. You know what this really reminded me of? How they in the Dresden Files book series, how Jim Butcher describes Mother Winter and Mother Summer, and Mother Winter's like collection of all these vials, and it's like a vial of pestilence and a vial of whatever. Like, that's what it reminded me of, like all this, like all the diseases and stuff. Anyway, chaos in the garden. So they go take a look around and
meet Sweet Pea.
They meet Sweet Pea. So then, let's see, clever argument. So now that they're not alone, Imogen tells everybody about R'hllora and how Odahan and Liliana can push themselves into other people's dreams. So they think that the Ruby Vanguard makes some good points and questions if the gods are really great. That's what Imogen says. Orem thinks that some of them are. And it all makes FCG want to learn more about the gods to understand why the Vanguard is so opposed to them. Really good character development stuff. They believe that the people who are making these keys are bad people, and Ashton says that not anyone can make a clever argument whether or not it's accurate, which is a really good point. So they go through that. Then they go into the dreamscape. So FCG casts Shared Dream on Imogen and Laudna, and they kind of enter into that, which was a whole scenario we can talk about in just a sec. FCG is cast out with Imogen, and Laudna is sort of unmoored and left behind. And then she successfully gets back to the Fey Realm after Laudna forces her to wake up. But she's got a point of exhaustion, which is never good in D&D when you have to take exhaustion. Get some advice for the road, so they start talking about the 3 Herocall Veils. That will help them remain unseen, which is great. So they kind of, when they're standing still, though, like and then she gives Fern a Gloomscale breastplate, so she's got some armor now to help her along the way. Fern talks to Nana about her parents. They talk about the whole situation, her growing up, and what was going on with the Callaways. Um, then they run into centaurs as they're out there.
And
That's
then
a
there
whole.
are centaurs.
And then there are centaurs. Um, I was like, as soon as he was described, I was like centaurs, and then
Yes,
like,
yeah, you
yeah,
were.
it was funny. So they awaken a tree. They've got like this whole deal that they've got to potentially fight, and then yeah, there we go. So Imogen's attack activates her meta magic shard and causes a fog cloud to emanate from her mouth. So yeah, they use that to hopefully cover the retreat. All right, a lot happening there too. So
Yeah.
let's
Yep.
let me head over. I'll keep an eye on the chat too. If anybody has anything, I'll pop it in. All right, so much happening. What do you think?
Well, Nana is creepy,
Yep.
but kind of cool, you know? I mean, I've never really
Creepy cool.
been into the whole like Tim Burton-y type stuff. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
But what this reminds me of. It reminds me of like, Nightmare Before Christmas or something like creepy but kind of cool, but then really creepy because there's like skins hanging from the wall, like in some of the rooms, and
it's a weird like mix of Tim Burton
yes.
and like Guillermo del Toro, like the Pan's
Yeah.
Labyrinth type of stuff, like to me at least. Yeah, it was.
And then she's got the one head up top and then one in her stomach.
Yeah. Ooh.
And they have different voices because they're different and they take shifts, but they're both Nana, So that part was, but she makes some mean drinks, some mean cocktails. Yeah. So she's mixing them up some drinks and they're having conversations. There's creepy crawlies everywhere, like skeletons suspended, animal skeletons suspended, and Laudna brought out pate.
William says, I feel she is very dangerous. Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Not someone to mess with. Although, and this is one of those things too. Okay, so me putting my DM hat on for a second. Like, one of the things that I think is important is when you have a long-term campaign and you know it's going to be that as you, especially if you know that you're going to have some connected NPCs to the players, let them develop on their own, like how they interact with them and how the relationships build. Let them role play all that stuff out. But having someone that is this powerful as someone that will aid them is a long-term thing, right? Like, this is something that they should be able to go back. But think of this, it's similar to when they were in the earlier levels of play. They had Lord Estros, who at the time, he was ultra powerful to them. He took all of them down in a fight single-handedly, right? So
right.
Being able to go to him, and then as the power creeps up and they were like, oh, we can always go ask him for help and we could go to him. Same thing in the last campaign with other people that they could lean on. So it's interesting to me that you have such a I don't know, unique like entity that is on their side, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it seems as if she is. So anyway, that's a side note, but it's
well,
good.
No, I know you.
To...
It's a great observation. I feel like that's part of like Matt creates these amazing characters, and it isn't just the group playing their characters. He really, really fleshes out a lot of the NPCs to the point where you're like, man, like Gilmore, like, like they live on. Pumat, I mean, they're just, people are going to be at cons as Maury. I mean, come on.
100%.
She's amazing.
I did a video on the channel about this where like, I think I even called it DMs or players too. And this is the chance he has. When you are the DM most of the time, this is your chance to play. You play the NPCs and you get to be all these other characters. And there are a few that are kind of like, like the Gilmores or the Pumat or the ones that are like really, you love to
like beneficial.
Right.
Yeah. Or you love
which
to hate.
that's why and that's why it hurts when someone like Estros dies, right?
Ugh, I
Because
cried.
if he hadn't invested in the character and made it come to life, you wouldn't have felt anything. Like it would
He
have been,
made them
oh, okay, that's
cookies, He
yeah,
made them
yeah.
cookies. They're carrying
So
around his
and
recipe. FCG got an oven installed so they could make his cookies.
and here we go.
So,
And Nana's making them drinks and giving them
yes.
cloth to keep themselves shielded, and so like
Yeah.
here's this other connection building, which is really cool.
Yeah. No, it is. It's really awesome. So she's super cool, but creepy, but cool. And, Fern gets to kind of show them around, and you can tell she is just so excited that they're in her home.
Yeah.
And then I think Laudna introduces Nana to Pate, and Nana's like, "Ooh, I want to keep you," because it's
Yeah.
a lot like all the creepy stuff she's got. And Pate's like,
I want to go back in.
No.
Can I go back?
I think he's even like weirded out by her, and that's saying something because he's weird,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so, and then they go out. They go out to the garden where there's topiaries in the images of people that everybody keeps looking around, going, "Those are real people." And Fern's like, "No." When in reality, yeah. I mean, I think we find out later. Doesn't Nana say something about adding people to her garden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Well, and again, it's and to me, again, these are old school tropes that like people have been using, but like there's such a fresh take on it, right? Like sort of like the Medusa with the statues leading up to where she is, but then you realize, oh no, that's not statues, those are people turned into stone, right? And so it's like a similar thing where like a lot of these tropes are around, but like if you do them in a unique way, they just, I don't know, they take on a really
well, and I think like Beauty and the Beast has elements like that too, where like some of them are turned into animated furniture and things, and then some are frozen in time. So yeah, it is something that's done frequently, but I think like how Matt can just, he makes it sound original until you really start thinking about it. You're like, oh, that is kind of like so and so, but it's still so cool because it wasn't just like generic, So,
but that's the thing, right? Like all of this stuff at some level, in some way, has been done, and our stories as humans, like we tell the same stories in different ways with different takes on it. It's very, very hard to find something 100% unique, right? Because of all the influences. So I can see influences and stuff, but I still think all of it's very unique what he's doing. It's just that you can see why it works, right? Like you can see how like certain tropes work really well. And then when you turn them up on their head and do something completely different, it works even better, right? Anyway, it's really well done. William also says, so I was hoping they would have to give something to Nana like in campaign 2. Yeah, so it was sort of like you have to do a tithe type of thing to get the help. Yeah, I think because it's Fern that's with them. It's
I think that's the
story.
only. Yeah,
it would be different.
I think her relationship with her is the ticket, because and they mention that she also took care of Fern's mom, so she really feels a tie to Fern. And then of course Fern shows up with all these delightful friends, and she's just like, oh, you guys are awesome. So I think the fact that she's this weird being, but she embraces them and opens them, welcomes them wholehearted, and like just like they're having a mixer on Saturday night, but in a weird way. I think it's cool. So then they meet where they meet the Sun Bear, Sweet Pea.
Yes. Yep.
He was cool. He was fun.
Very cool. I'm glad that like Ashley tends to pick animals that are not as common, right? Like she picks, like when she does her wild shape, she turns into things that not everybody thinks of, which is really fun. And then now the sun bear, not just a brown bear down the road. This is a sun bear. So makes
I
it
mean, I
unique.
had to look. I
So,
didn't even know they were a real
yeah.
thing. I had to look them up. I was like, a sun bear? Is that a fae thing? Fairy tale thing? No, they're real. Oh, okay.
It seems
What do
like
they
it
look
should
like?
be, right? Like it seems like they
Yeah,
could be from the
yeah.
Fae, right? Like that's a, yeah. Um, yeah. Let's see.
Think that then they bed down
So
for
the
the
way
night
he's able
too.
to describe the environment makes you feel that you are there. Yeah, he's really,
Yes.
really good at descriptions. I mean, granted, guys, like this is what they do for a living. You know, they're voice actors, they're actors just in general, but there is something more to it, I think, than just that. I think a lot of people say, well, they're professional actors and they've got all the, and I think a lot of the vocal talent and being able to pull off voices and emote and play and give things like that are really key to that. But I've played with dungeon masters that do, you know, as close of a job as you could think to about describing things as Matt does, right? Like, so I don't think anybody should watch this and be like, oh, well, Matt Mercer's the only one that can make descriptions like that, because you can learn how to do some of that stuff. He's just really good at it, right? Like he
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
and it's so natural to him. So it's
Right.
immense talent, but that's something, even if you don't
Right.
do voices, you can learn how to do that, right? Like,
Right.
um,
Well,
yeah,
and just watching the stream, like Critical Role is my first introduction to watching streaming games.
yeah,
So they're like my standard.
yeah.
But Brendan Lee Mulligan blew my mind when
Oh
he
man,
guessed,
so good.
you
Yeah,
know, had the EXU. Oh my God, Calamity. Listen, let me tell you, on the edge of my seat constantly. So
yeah,
there's so many people out there that's talented. It's just, you like, there are specific things that I think each one is really good at. You know, like Matt he can weave a story that it just sounds effortless. And
yeah.
I feel like Brendan Lee Mulligan, for me, it was just like emotion. You know, it was like, oh, oh what's happening? You know,
Yeah,
like, oh, what? Nonstop roller coaster. You know, whereas I think Matt knows that they're settling in for the long haul, so you got to like eke it out a
that's right.
little bit at a time. You know, you can't just like hit somebody in the face and just keep like a runaway train. So
Yeah, yeah.
I just
So,
it's amazing to me that people are that imaginative.
and it's everybody's got their own skills, right? Like, and I think it also is something that you grow over time, right? Like it's something that he's been playing for a long, long time. Like before he was a
Right.
voice actor, he was doing D&D,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah.
as a kid. So like you do something for a long time, you get good at some things. If you allow yourself to learn and pick up some things from people. So, um, awesome. Okay,
Me
so
either,
then,
William.
yeah.
He said he
Oh, yeah. Let
can't
me.
think of his a world without Critical Role every week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Same here.
Good call. Yeah, yeah.
So
Awesome.
they
All right, so let's.
they bed down for the night, but they start talking about their individual, I think, things that have been like
Yep.
or that have been happening, and then they try to have a dream together.
They have the dream. They are going through the whole dreamscape with the three of them: FCG, Imogen, and Laudna. Um, Laudna, as they go through it, it seems as though Imogen can sort of see other things. Has a little. She feels as if she's got more control than she used to. Um, it's really interesting. Uh, what I thought was interesting was the fact that um, Laudna gets kind of trapped,
Yeah.
like, and not able to wake. And it takes Imogen to force her awake in the end of
Yeah.
that. So I don't know. That's interesting to me, and it makes me wonder, like, if there is something to, I don't know, the dream realm. Is that the best way to look at it? I don't know. Like,
I mean,
if the
she's been
dream
trapped in
realm,
them before.
yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, you
And also,
know,
like, yeah, yeah. Well, and also, like, can Imogen, like, is this what Imogen is seeing somehow when she saw the premonitions of Bertrand and with Esteros? Like, is she connecting somehow to the dream realm, and maybe these other beings are feeding her the information?
Maybe. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Like, maybe that has to do with her premonitions, that she
Right.
knows when something's happened is because she can see it somehow through this realm. I don't know. It made more questions for me than answers, but like they ended up saving, or she ended up getting out. She got that point of exhaustion. And then they really are like, okay, they end up moving on, right? Like after that,
Yeah. Yeah.
they set out, say goodbye to Nana. Nana gives the gifts, which was really nice. And Fern has that whole conversation with them, like we talked about a little earlier, with Nana about like her parents and all that stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's funny to me that like they don't get too far before they are running into centaurs. Like it's like they just can't quite. They can't catch a break, you know.
Well, and I think nobody
happens.
speaks the language that they're speaking. So I think FCG casts tongues on himself so that he can
Yep.
understand them and try to speak to them so that it doesn't turn straight into an altercation. And they try to drop Maury's name, but it didn't work. You know, like they didn't
Yep.
care. And then
Well,
they
and
blew them away.
so they're real interested. So William says, "I don't think she needs to be asleep to use those abilities. I think the moon's out all the time. It creates an invisible force through Alexandria. That could be too. Like maybe it's you know, technically because it's not so much that the dreams need to happen. Maybe it's the fact that Ruidus is making, you know, that happen. It's out all the time, whether you can see it or not, right? It's
Right.
around. So that could definitely be what it is. I just felt like it was just so familiar with the dreamscape and the premonitions that she was getting. I thought maybe there was a connection there, but who knows? But back to the centaur thing, they're kind of there, and I think it's FCG, like you said, cast tongues, and he almost like gives it away, right? Because he couldn't see everybody else, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Well,
Yeah.
we are," and they're like, "Who's we?"
Yeah. Right. He outs the group.
Yeah. So then they were able to take care of what they need to take care of between the centaurs. The wild magic happens. Fog cloud. It's an image it's like fog cloud
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
Imogen's mouth.
Imogen's face. Yes.
Yeah, it's so funny. So all right,
At
so
least it
let's,
helps them on their stealth rolls.
That's true. Yeah. So that brings us now, finally, after we've gone past the manor, we are in the Fey Key. So, well, maybe. Sorry, everybody.
It's our first time doing it live, so working
Well,
out
it's
the kinks.
also, a little bit of a issue with my system. I'm hoping I can get this fixture soon.
Part of it is we need to hook you in to the main line.
This is part of the reason. Well, why don't you, while I'm doing this, why don't you tell them why it took so long for us to get back with our next show?
So we try really hard to put out a video right after the next episode comes out. Sometimes around the holidays, it might be an extra week or so, and we try to catch up then. But this go round, we were really kind of getting cramped in various rooms in the house, especially since, you know, some of us work from home. And then we also have several little home side businessy type things that we do. We got a glow forge, we got a silhouette, you know, the whole 9 yards. And so, came up with this brilliant idea to move Ethan upstairs. He's our 10-year-old, to a bigger room and to move around the offices to kind of have a dedicated office / hobby room, and then a dedicated office for Brian that doesn't have any of the hobby stuff in it. So we spent several weeks shuffling 3 rooms in the house.
Yeah.
So
Crystal's being modest. Her room looks amazing. My room it's serviceable, but Crystal's room looks amazing. And to be honest, it's where, other than my little corner right here where my desk is, her room is where 90% of Geek Philosophy lives, like with a lot of the other stuff that we do besides the video content because of our Etsy shop. all that kind of stuff. So
You
you
see
can
the
see,
cat.
and also, her dice collection. If you guys remember her dice
There's the
giveaway,
Glowforge.
so they have the Glowforge. We've got a Cricket over there somewhere for all of
Yep.
our tabletop role-playing game stickers that will be coming out at some point. But anyways, this is really not a commercial. This is just letting you know why
No,
it took a
but
while
that's the
for
whole
us to do it.
reason
We had
why
to
it
move
took
some
us
big
a
stuff,
little
so.
while to bring out another video, because he has to be in an office and I have to be in an office, so that we're not hearing each other while we're,
Yep.
going through us talking. And then you also have to have everything set up behind you so it doesn't look like a hot mess. So,
Yep.
and
Well,
get it all worked out.
Thank you, William, for the vote of confidence. Here we go. William says, "You guys
Thank
are
you,
awesome.
William.
Glad you're doing this." Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you, and appreciate you showing up in the chat. I know we'll have.
Yeah.
This is our first time doing it live. I'm sure
We're
have
like,
more
well, maybe
people
someone will
joining
be
us as we go,
there.
so.
Maybe
Yeah,
not.
so I'm glad we've got somebody, and we'll probably have more
Several
people join
people,
as we go.
I know Polyhedral
Most of the people-
Paradise came in earlier and said hello, so I just did a little hi in the
nice.
chat. But
Very nice.
I was hoping, like, do you see my
Yeah.
dice collection?
Nice. Yeah, this is their, like I said, first time doing it live. Most of the people that I've been watching have been watching the recorded versions that we put out. So as it catches on, I think more people that are able to, because we also have some people that are definitely not in our time zone, that are in the UK
Right.
or in Australia or New Zealand or something, then they're probably not going to be watching or be able to join, but they'll get the video later. So hello to all of you that catch us when you can. All right, so
Well,
here we
William,
go. So,
we actually didn't know if anybody would show up because we haven't done a live. So it's nice that there are people here. But also, I don't think we started advertising maybe a week. So it'll catch on,
We'll put out more.
Hopefully.
So
hopefully we're not boring.
Yeah. No, he says, I don't mind having you here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to only be one of a couple or the only one in the chat, so you can actually get your questions popped up. So we appreciate that. Okay, so here we are in this last episode that just came out. First, we had the whole, they dealt with the fog cloud. It's starting to help their stealth as they're going through. They are trying to find the Malleus key from the Fey realm. So they're moving through. Laudna sending Pate to go investigate the tower that they come upon. And when he gets near it, he's hit with this whole, like, purple light, like kind of like fairy fire. He's flying into the forest. He spots more towers, and they're likely sentry towers, meaning like these are the ones on the outskirts to send warning to the ones inside. So they hear a horrible noise coming from the forest, and FCG flips their coin, asking the Changebringer if that creature is dangerous. Apparently not, according to the coin. And so when questioned by others, FCG explains that he has spent so much time trying to figure out what he is, he realized that the Changebringer is their guide, and the coin is just, what's going to help him along the way. But he said the coin is just a piece of metal making a choice, so he trusts in faith, and he's telling others not to discount his own wisdom and experience. So then he continues to use his coin to make decisions after he says all that. So, fun. Threading the needle. So Pate is circling the forest. The fairy light fades after about 10 minutes, and he sees that the towers are keeping a ring perimeter around the keep. So then, with Laudna and Pate's assistance, FCG confidently guides them through the forest, and he's sure that the Changebringer is helping them. Orem notices some things, and then they're hit by, well, not hit by, but they're come upon by 15 folks led by a figure on a flaming black stallion. By the way, if you see a flaming black stallion, it is a nightmare, and I don't mean that figuratively. The creature is called a nightmare, so check that out if you need to see the stats. Ground shifts between Ashton's foot, and it causes him to sink into the ground. And then, they are in uh,
Making
in some
away.
trouble there. But then Nana says about giving the ground an iron tithe. So he throws some jacks,
Yep.
which crazy that he has some jacks. And this whole iron tithe thing really fits in with the Fey realm and fairies and iron, as in most fantasy settings. There's a connection there where there's sort of like the bane is iron. Making their way, so they push through the forest. And then let's see, they find themselves on the outskirts of Shiver Keep's exterior walls. The fact that it's called Shiver Keep, we just came from,
Ligament Manor.
Manor, and now we've got Shivering Peak or Keep here. It's it's pretty interesting. Chetney wolfs out, and then he ends up going and helping with the guard situation. Orms figures out that they can slide the portable hole under the gate and make it a tunnel for the others to pass through. FCG casts banishment on the remaining guard, and they lay out the hole and make it through the other side. So they trap both the guards within the hole and get into the keep. Then, as the group hides, there's a couple figures in the courtyard. One of them is a high-ranking Unseelie official. The rest is Odahan Thule. Believe it or not,
Sorrow, yes.
we've got Thule there. So
and a person called Sorrow Lord, Sorrow Lord
is never a good name. If you're going to be a lord, Happy Lord sounds so much better than Sorrow Lord. But
a Lord of Sorrow.
I mean,
not a larking lord or a loving lord. A Sorrow Lord.
Well, you ready for it?
Sure.
Yep. I had to, Liz. All right, so then they work out a plan to go disarm the Malleus Key, and then Ashton and Chetney put on the guards' uniforms, and Fern wild shapes into a slow Loris. I don't remember that, but
you don't? I looked it up to see what it looked like. It's a tiny little monkey that's got big bulging eyes.
See, she picks these cool, obscure animals. It's great. So then they decide to overload the arcane cores. So there's dynamite involved. There's the gate, and then I'm pretty sure that it was Fern's wall of fire that actually does the trick and overloads everything, basically blowing up the entire Malleus Key.
Yes.
But the drawback is that the spectral Ruidus vanishes from the sky, and then that lets the Unseelie know what's going on. Something's happening. They hear Gloamgut, the Fey dragon, shriek in the distance, and the group begins rushing for the exit. So the fact that you've got another creature, Gloamgut, is not a good name for someone that you want to meet at all. So here are all the things that happen. So luckily they're able to get Fern, run into the woods. They pull on the Harrowcall veils to kind of stay veiled and unseen, and that's where we end it. And then the next episode is where things go. So okay, that was not my recap. That was Critical recap from Danny Carr, but it was my butchering of it to kind of keep things moving. So let's go to our chat. So let me head over here. So okay, lots of stuff again in this episode. Yes. For everybody watching this, and for William, you in the chat, know that we will be able to take a little bit more time on each one of these as we move forward. We were just kind of getting 3 at a time here. So so Crystal, what do you think about this one?
So first time we've actually seen Odahan really, since the big fight. So that was intense for a minute, but I think, overall getting there, getting through the various guard towers, and then I think, doesn't Pate get eaten by the Gloamgut? He's flying around looking at stuff, and then I think he gets eaten. I might be wrong, but I thought he got eaten.
I don't
by
know.
something
William in the chat
in the
again?
sky.
Yeah. I don't remember.
I don't think that at first.
So-
I don't think that they. I don't know if they necessarily. If Matt said it was Gloamgut at first, but then because they saw
yeah.
Gloamgut circle or that's. Do I have him saying his name right? Right?
Gloamgut, yeah.
Yeah, he's circling around
Gloomy
before
is
they
what I call
see
when we were
him
in,
and Odahan.
middle
So
school.
your friends, like
Yeah,
that,
when
and
we were
Gloomy,
back in middle school, we called him Gloomy. Yeah. Yes. William
along
says,
with the Sad Lord.
yeah. William says yes. Sad
Yeah.
Lord was the PE teacher. Gloomy was. We were pals. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Whatever.
William says yes. By the way, that he was eaten by.
Yeah,
He'll be back,
but
though.
I mean, right? He's her
pate,
familiar, so that
everybody
doesn't.
eats-
He's not really dead.
What did you? If you have flying pate around, what did you think? They weren't going to eat flying pate? All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Anyways, so I do think them like getting up a little bit closer and seeing the Sorrow Lord guy and Odahan, and then checking the ball, and the ball does work.
Yeah.
So it's the first time they've looked at it and it's worked. So they at least
Yeah.
know that that ring is still on her somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty quick. They come, they check the keys, and then Orem comes in clutch with his lip reading. Right? What is that? What was that he took? Was it a feat?
Oh yeah, no. It's, yeah.
Is it observe?
Yeah,
No.
Observant feat, which is
Observant.
It's clutch. I highly recommend this feat if you are playing any character that is based on perception and being able to do stuff. And he rolled I think he nat 20'd on it plus his observant feat. But like, yeah, it's a really good feat to pick up if you are looking at trying to be sort of an investigator or someone that's just noticing things. It's a good one. Oh, and William says Ashton made a perception check but failed, so no one could tell what happened because he didn't see. So that's what happened.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the whole conversation that they end up having, though, leads us to believe that Ludinus is actually not working fast enough for these guys, and they are going to threaten him that he needs to light a fire. They need to light a fire under his butt, or he can be dealt with, or whatever. So it seems like he's just
Makes
not.
me wonder how they could deal with him. I don't know.
I mean, because Ludinus's whole idea is to release Predathos because he doesn't like the gods. He doesn't think the gods should have anything to do with anything. He thinks that they are the worst thing that's ever happened to, their realms, and they're only there feeding the gods power, and it's broken. And so his whole thing is he wants Ruidus, that netting to kind of come down so the Predathos can be released and consume the gods. So my thing then is okay, well, if that's his plan, they must have a different one.
Yeah, and I think that this is one of those things where it's like we know most of the pieces, but we don't know everybody's motivation. Like we know what people can do and what they want, but we don't always know the why behind what they want. And the why is going to make a big difference when they figure out like who they're going to deal with. And also, are they potentially going to have to make some allies with people that might appear to be enemies right now in order to like what if they end up having to ally themselves with Thule in order to not have Predathos completely freed? Like, I mean, like, or vice versa, whatever the situation is. I don't know.
It would be
They're gonna have to
hard
choose
because of how
between-
she killed, like how she was just so brutally horrific killing Laudna. Like she enjoys torture. She enjoys being nasty. So I think it will be hard. But it isn't anything that the group hasn't done before.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, and also you kind of have to make the deals. One thing that we haven't really talked about in a while because we haven't been on, but also because it's been a while since this has happened. They made contacts in Tal'Dorei with the with Vox Machina. Like, so they've got contacts with Keyleth now, and so like
Whitestone.
just Whitestone in general. So what if the Keela thing of her going around and doing stuff also is going to intersect with all the things that are happening right now? It's just interesting to me. Like, I don't know how that's going to come back again. Now they've made contacts, they've made powerful friends, but what comes into play there? It would be really crazy if they end up having to do something that goes against what their previous characters did or need to do or something to save themselves. And
or to at least appear like they are, to try and work a different angle, so it will be interesting to see how they handle everything, and then who ends up shaking out on the side of either ambiguous, I guess, or on the side of good. I kind of get this feeling about Imogen's mom. I feel like she was stuck. I feel like Ludinus knew she was powerful. She got embroiled in whatever his plans were, and then she couldn't get out, so she did everything she could, leaving Imogen behind, so that Imogen didn't, knowing that Imogen was also Rudis born, that she wouldn't also be a pawn. But I think it'll be interesting to see once they do show up how the mom how Liliana handles it.
So, a lot going on here. Well, I mean, we made it through 3 episodes, so we've done 2 before.
Right.
This is our first time doing 3, and we did it live.
I was going to say one thing, though.
Sure.
You made a really good point the other night. In the middle of them climbing down into this machine, right? This key. Doesn't Laudna have an immovable rod? Like,
I mean, if this is a gear situation,
yes.
If this has to turn this to make this turn, an immovable rod right in the middle might be perfect.
But we're gonna go with a stick of dynamite.
But hey,
Fluffernutter.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. How do you blow up the gear? I don't know. Anyway, it worked. Whatever they were gonna do, even the wall of fire worked. So magic is as magic is, right? So, all right. So, Crystal Star, I am so hyped. Yes, I am. Let's add that.
We have got a lot of good. I feel like every single episode is meat right now, whereas we've had some leading up until now where we'd get halfway through and we're like, what is going on right now? Because it's so back and forth. So
it's like, let me pause this, come back to it later. It's just, but that's D&D, guys. That's tabletop role-playing game in general. You have times where it's like you're figuring stuff out. You'll have a 3-hour plan to do something that falls apart in the first 1 minute, right? So like it's just,
well, I know
crazy.
that I'm sitting over there yelling at the TV. They're spending so much time working out a plan. I'm like, guys, it's not going to work. Guys, you're the first second something happens, it goes to shit. They just start blowing stuff up every time.
Since this
like
game
whatever
was
that
created,
hour-long planning period was, it's not.
It's the
just
way
goes
it's
out the
always
window.
Been. It's always this way. It's countless how many plans I've seen that like take forever and then fall apart, right? So
like you said, within the first minute.
Yep.
But it's so much fun overall.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah, it is kind of hard to focus in the moment. You're right. But again, a reminder for all of us, right? They're playing a game, right? Like it's not a movie. It's not scripted out to so they're having to think of it on the fly, and they do an amazing job. But sometimes it'll drag. So it's just the nature of it. So, all right. Well, nice job. We made it.
Do you have any predictions on what you think might happen?
So I don't have anything as obvious of a prediction as some of the ones that we've said in the past. I'm kind of curious of how this is going to play out because I'll say this. I think that the X factor in the group, as far as in Bell's Hells, of someone that may not turn on them, but may do something that might throw things off dramatically is Imogen. I think because in maybe because she wants to protect everybody, but I think she's going to have to deal with that whole factor of what's going on with her and her mother. And like I can imagine a scenario where Imogen's mom rises up and takes over against Thule, and then is like, I need you by my side now. What does she do?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, there's so many different things that could happen. I just feel like of all of them, it seems like Imogen is going to be in this place of maybe not intentionally. Maybe she'll go supernova like she did the last time that something happened.
Right.
When Laudna died. I mean, like, who knows? But that's just a guess. It's not even really a prediction. I've got nothing really there's no evidence of that. It's just a feeling. But I don't know. What about you?
Well, I'm over here still going like, Delilah's not gone.
That's true. Yeah.
She's not gone. She's probably licking her wounds, injured, trying to regain energy and trying to regain a foothold somewhere, somehow in Laudna, but she's not gone, which that might have had something to do with Laudna getting stuck in the dream realm. Who knows? But then I also, I want to know how her, machinations play into Predathos, because the one thing about Delilah is that she's not an idiot, and she wants to play for the winning team and the team that's going to give her the most power. And, so I'm curious to see if she reemerges and how that looks. And then I also am with you in the fact that Imogen is really the biggest wild card. Mainly because of the amount of power she's got that she doesn't really realize that she has no control over. Stuff just keeps happening to her. Like that being that showed, the Rashawn thing just showed up in the middle of a fight. She's channeling it. She's a connection to Ruidus that's coming through during the day in the middle of a fight. Most of them had to be experimented on.
Yep.
Most of the Ruidusborn had to be experimented on to get to the point where they could connect and communicate with these beings. So the fact that they're just popping up, I mean, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's gonna be interesting how that plays out. Let's see. We got a prediction from the chat. All right, so I predict that they need more of the keys taken out. Yes. That may be obvious. Maybe it is, but I think that you're right on with that. I think they are going to need to take the keys out, and I think it may get progressively harder to take the keys out, given the fact that they started in the Fey realm where the connection was the weakest. So the harder ones may be where the connection is stronger with Runa. I don't know. And her god is still Vecna. I don't think she'll be able to betray him. Meaning, Delilah. Yeah, so she won't be able to betray Delilah. And the fact, the key thing to me that says Delilah's still around and doing what she needs to do is the fact that, Laudna has powers.
She's still a warlock.
Warlocks to get her, she's able to cast the things.
She was born a sorcerer.
Yeah.
Right. She was born a sorcerer, and Delilah gave her warlock levels. So the fact that she still has warlock powers.
Yes.
Delilah's still around. So that's the whole.
She hasn't made a deal with anybody else, right? So she hasn't said, which would be interesting to me is, okay, here's a prediction. It's out of left field. What if she makes a deal and she swaps her warlock once they are able to get rid of Delilah for good, and her patron is the Sun Tree? Her form of dread is already more and more looking like the Sun Tree, right?
Or Maury.
It could be. Yeah. Let's see. We've got one other one here. The dark place is going to be tough. I don't remember. Oh yeah. So, Matt's world, the Shadow Realm in D&D 5th edition, they call it Shadowfell, but you've basically got the Fey Realm and then the Shadow Realm, and they overlap the Prime Material Plane. So yeah, absolutely, that's going to be a tough one too. I'm really curious about what's going on there. Oddly enough, we had a lot of things happening with. I was playing with that whole concept when we did our Relics of the Ancients live stream campaign, and still a lot of unanswered questions for you guys on that. But
but you should hear Brian next to me. Don't you do it, Matt Mercer. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
That's every person that runs a game that when Matt's playing, he's about to say something that we already have that getting ready to happen in our game. Because no matter what, right? No matter how separate those ideas came to be, it will always be seen as Matt Mercer did it first. And I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying that it's just the way it is.
It's just so funny though, because it's like, no, I was doing that first.
I was like, I just need my players to know. I just need my players to know that I'm not just ripping off anything you did. Like, we did this first. Yeah. But it was even like, you guys had first met with, like in the game, you discovered temper. Yeah. And I was like, man, temper, it's not FCG, but like they had this whole thing and the Aormatons start showing up and here I have this. Anyway.
And the Shatterkai from the Shadowfell and, you know, all that good stuff. But, you know, like it just makes it funny to me sitting there listening to you go, no, don't you do it.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is if this won't happen, but if I was ever to sit down in a room with Matt Mercer and we were able to swap stories about ideas of things, we would be like, oh yeah, that's great. Oh no, that's great. Like we would probably
just be circular.
On the same page because we're all kind of thinking along the same.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as I'm not saying I'm as good a DM as Matt Mercer. I'm saying some of the ideas for plot threads that we have are very similar. So yeah.
You're a good DM.
Yeah, but I'm not Mercer. All right, so I hope the next campaign, one of the cast members will play a detective or someone who has a lot of questions about the world to give us more lore. That's really it's a really good one. I would love to see that too. Yes. The closest that we've had to that so far was actually
Sarah.
In Calamity, right? Travis's character was that detective type character.
Amazing.
And so if you haven't checked out the Exandria Unlimited, the Calamity stuff, that was really cool because he played like a birdfolk type character, but man, super perceptive.
He was like so awesome
type character. It was really cool. But it would be cool to have something similar in one of the current campaigns too. So.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for bearing with us as we were working through the kinks of going live. We'll get better at the live shows as we go, but I'm glad that we had a couple people show up in the chat. William, I can this is where we are with the chat. I can literally talk to the person that's there rather than William.
It's so cool.
You for showing up.
Yeah thank you for showing up.
Nice. So I really appreciate it. And those of you that are
catching, and then also Wolverine, we had Wolverine, William, then we had the polyhedral
dice. Where did they go?
Yeah,
jumped in to say
polyhedral paradise.
Hello. Let me make sure we've got hello. I want to do this so that even on the recordings we've got let's see, Wolverine. Not only was Wolverine in, but they were 2 days early because they were excited to be here. And then
that's when you need to have the yay.
They were listening to us while they were working on tabletop RPG in the background. Thanks so much for doing that. We appreciate it. So all of you, thanks for sticking with us. And we'll catch you next week. Don't forget to bring a tasty beverage when you join us. So we'll catch you next time.